We're at 9 o'clock. We're going to begin. Can everybody take their seats, please? Okay, can we do roll call?
Reed Bradley.
Here.
Here.
Mike Kelly.
Here.
Dan Caliendo.
Here.
Gary Scarborough.
Here.
Michelle Burke.
Here.
Alex Brumfeld. Mark Eady.
Here.
Jess Sowers.
Here.
Jeff Bourne.
Thank you. Can we please stand for our opening prayer and pledge of allegiance?
Lord, we ask your guidance today as we consider matters that will affect the safety and welfare of many people in our county. Help us listen with open minds to matters that are important before us and to act on the matters that will benefit those who reside in our area. Keep our minds open and alert, our hearts compassionate, and our comments charitable. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Zoning Commission of Palm Beach County has convened at 9 a.m. in the Vista Center, Ken Rogers Hearing Room, VC 1W47, 2300 North Jog Road, West Palm Beach, 33411, to consider applications for official zoning map amendments, plan developments, conditional uses, development order amendments, Type 2 variances, and other actions permitted by the Palm Beach County Unified Land Development Code, and to hear the recommendations of staff on these matters. The Commission takes final action regarding Class B conditional uses, subdivision variances, and Type 2 variances, and issues advisory recommendations on accepting, rejecting, or modifying the recommendations of staff regarding other requests. The Board of County Commissioners of Palm Beach County will conduct a public hearing in the 6th floor Jane Thompson Memorial Chambers, 301 North Olive Avenue, West Palm Beach, 33401, at 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, May 26, 2022, to take final action on the applications listed below regarding official zoning map amendments, rezoning, Class A conditional uses, requested uses, plan developments, development order amendments, waiver requests, and administrative inquiries. Zoning hearings are quasi-judicial in nature and must be conducted to afford all parties due process. The Board of County Commissioners has adopted procedures for conduct of quasi-judicial hearings to govern the conduct of such proceedings. The procedures include the following requirements. Any communication with commissioners which occurs outside the public hearing must be fully disclosed at the hearing. Applicants and persons attending the hearing may question commissioners regarding their disclosures. Such questions shall be limited solely to the disclosures made at the hearing or the written communications made a part of the record at the hearing. Any person representing a group or organization must provide documentation that the person representing the group has the actual authority to do so regarding the matter before the Commission. Any person who wishes to speak at the hearing will be sworn in and may be subject to cross-examination. The applicant and county staff may cross-examine witnesses. Any other persons attending the hearing may submit cross-examination questions, including follow-up questions to the chair, who will conduct the examination. The scope of cross-examination is limited to the facts alleged by the witness in relation to the application. Public comment is encouraged, and all relevant information should be presented to the Commission in order that a fair and appropriate decision can be made. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, before we make the motion, I'd like to let the record reflect that Commissioner Brumfield has joined the meeting.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And I'd like to make a motion for receiving and filing proof of publication.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The swearing in?
All those wishing to testify or speak on any of today's items, please rise and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay. Amendments to the agenda?
Yes. Okay. We already did the motion on the minutes, but they were attached to the amendments to the agenda. Under postponements, there'll be item number 9, Palma Lake Car Wash. The applicant requested to postpone to the July hearings. They'll need to come to the podium to explain their extenuating circumstances, and a motion will be required. On the consent agenda, item D4, which is Terra Nova, we have clarification in the staff report that staff's recommendation is including Exhibit C2. So it's C1, C2, and C3, and we've clarified the sections of the code. I also have to read into the record that variance condition number 2 for Exhibit C1 needs to be deleted as it's duplicative. Item number 5, which is Broward Motorsports. On the add delete, we have to amend the all petition condition 1 as read on the amendments to the agenda. And then compliance condition number 1 as well is of Exhibit C1 amended to reflect Zoning Commission rather than the Board of County Commissioners. On the regular agenda, item number 8, we're deleting all petition condition number 2 of Exhibit C and renumber the remaining conditions accordingly, as it is also a duplicative condition. D10, under PGA Waterfront, we have a proposed deletion of environmental condition C1 in Exhibit C2. Amend all petition condition 1 of Exhibit C3 to reflect the Board of County Commissioners, and then amend compliance condition number 1 of Exhibit C3 for the correct verbiage of property owner as well as compliance with conditions. Number 11, which is the Fount MUPD, we have an amendment to the compliance condition number 1, again to reflect the Board of County, the Zoning Commission. Missing the word Zoning Commission, but it's Zoning Commission. For that compliance condition number 1, and we have a revision to the motion for the type 2 variance. It currently says to allow a 15-foot easement overlap, and it should be a 12-foot easement overlap. And then I need to read into the record for the subdivision variance Exhibit C1, it says the property owner, and it should include the word shall after property owner. So we're adding in the word shall. And then I need to read into the record a revision for Exhibit C2, Landscape General number 1, and it shall read as follows. At time of submittal of final approval by the Development Review Officer, the property owner shall provide a landscape detail for the right-of-way buffer along Okeechobee Road to show a maximum 12-foot easement overlap, not 15. In addition, the plan shall include cross-sections, not gross sections, of the buffer to indicate the grades of the Lakewood Drainage District easement and adjacent buildings. And that's what I have for the add delete.
Whoa.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended with the add and delete.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. This time, do we need the applicant?
Disclosures and recusals. Oh, no, that'd be her.
Okay. Okay. Any disclosures?
None.
Yes. Item number 10, I talked to the applicant.
Okay. Sherry?
Agenda item number 10, I also spoke with the applicant.
I also talked to the applicant on item 10.
I spoke with the applicant on item 10 and item 11.
Received an email from, with regard to the PGA waterfront, otherwise no disclosures.
No.
And Madam Chair, I received email communications on item number 10, and I spoke to the applicants on item number 11 and item number 8.
Okay. And I have no disclosures.
Okay. That'll bring us to page 2 of the agenda for postponements. We have ZV 2021 1937, which is Critchfield Holdings. The applicant requested a postponement to June 2nd. No motion is necessary due to the timing of their request. Then we have on our add delete item number 9, ABN CA 2021-797, the Palm Elite Car Wash. The applicant is requesting a postponement to the July 7th hearing, and I will need them to come to the podium to explain their extenuating circumstances due to the timing of their request.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Are they able to come to the podium?
Didn't see her. I'll speak on the applicant's behalf. They were not able to get what they needed to get done by this meeting, so they're asking for a postponement, and I'm in support, but we need the motion and the vote from the board.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to postpone item number 01937 to June 2nd, 2022.
Second.
I believe they were asking, Tim,
July,
I think they were asking for July.
July.
I'm sorry, it says June on the...
We
I
apologize.
apologize. July 2nd. Madam Chair, I'd like to amend my motion to change it to July 2nd, 2022.
Second.
This is for Palm Elite, item 9. Critchfield is for
Talking two different.
June.
On the add delete,
Item
July
number 9,
7th.
Car wash.
Right.
00797.
797, yeah, July 7th.
That's a car wash.
Right.
All right. So, Madam Chair, item number 00797, I'd like to amend my motion again to postpone that item to July 2nd, 2022. 7th.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes.
Okay,
There's
that
another
ends.
postponement.
Yeah, there's another.
Okay, that'll end our postponement agenda and bring us to page 3. The first thing on the consent has to do with requests to pull items from consent. I believe you have cards
Just-
on.
Wendy, do we have on the record, I know, just to clarify, we has the motion for the July. Did we get the other one postponed, the June?
Agenda item number 1.
There was no motion necessary.
Okay,
Wow.
all right, thank you. All right,
Okay.
Yes, so they had submitted, when they submit the request more than 5 days in advance, no motion is necessary. It's staff initiated. And then when they do it 5 days in advance, less than 5 days, then they
then
have
we
to.
do need,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so for consent agenda, we have requests to pull items from consent. I'm seeing on my sheet that there are 5 cards for Evergreen Townhouse, so I'm not sure if it's at the board's will, if you'd like to pull the item and hear their comments to move it to regular.
Can we just take a check of the cards with the,
We have 3 cards that do not wish to speak and 2 that wish to speak, Madam Chair.
What's that?
In
Okay.
favor, opposed.
or just regarding them,
Right. Are they in
Right.
favor or are they opposed?
are they in favor or opposed?
Opposed.
Yeah, they're opposed, yes, we'll have,
And the 2 that wish to speak do not state whether they are support or...
okay, all right, yeah, we'll hear the 2 that wish to,
So would you like to pull that item from consent and
Move
move it to
to
regular?
pull the item from consent to regular agenda.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Okay, so that will leave us with the remaining items on the consent agenda, item 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I'm
Wendy?
not showing any
Wendy?
cards.
We have 2 cards on item number 3 in opposition of that wish
Okay.
to speak.
Would you guys like to pull that item?
yes,
Make a motion to move item number 3 to the regular agenda.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Okay. I'm gonna say, hopefully I don't have any more cards on the remaining one, 4, 5,
No.
6, and 7.
No further cards on 4, 5, 6, and 7.
So it'll be at the will if you'd like to do one motion for all of them.
Yes.
yes,
Entertain a motion?
Madam
Oh.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended for items 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, so that'll bring us to item number 2. The first thing on our regular agenda for items pulled from consent, it's CA 2020-02103, which is the Evergreen Townhouse Project. The staff report has 25 pages. The conditions are found on page 8 through 11, and staff does recommend approval subject to conditions in Exhibit C1 and C2. I will turn it over to the applicant to do a presentation, and then staff.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dave Prasad, and I'm representing the petitioner, Evergreen One LLC. I am very thankful to you this morning, give me an opportunity to propose this development to you, and we're expecting positive results. Very good. Evergreen Townhouse, it's a development in unincorporated Palm Beach County. Let me see if I can see this. Okay. Okay, very good. Today we are requesting Class A conditional use to allow more than 24 multifamily units in the RM zoning district. Second condition use we're requesting is a workforce housing program density bonus of greater than 50%. All right. Just want to give you a general overview of the project and give you an idea where it's located, etc. This is a map showing the project site. This project is west of Military Trail, south of Community, north of Okeechobee, and east of Haverhill, within that area, if you're familiar with those roads. It is off Old Military Trail. It is surrounding with compatible use development. To the east of that project, we have a mobile park. We have businesses, small mom-and-pop stores, grocery stores, etc. To the north of it, we have a plaza, which have restaurants, restaurant bars, mom-and-pop stores. To the west of it, it's an RM12 residential units. There are rental units in that area. It's a large development that's been existing there for quite a while. And to the south, we have single-family homes. Probably some are duplex, some are single-family, and we also have a place of worship. Excuse me, I don't know why it's jumping. Anyway, to give you an overview of what the project is. It's 4.52 acres parcel. Florida land use, MR5. The zone residential multifamily. It lies within a CCRT number 10 Old Military Trail area. Obviously, the site is vacant. The property owner is proposing to develop 40 multifamily units. Final density will be 8.83 units per acre. And out of that, we will have designated to the county 8 workforce housing. No idea why it's moving backwards with this. Oh. It's not very viewable, the site plan, but it is a site plan that was prepared and presented to Palm Beach County staff. They have reviewed that site plan. It meets all of the requirements based on the ULDC with regards to setback, parking, drainage, recreation areas, etc. This next slide will give you a topographical view and overview of what it really looks like, basically will look like in real. If you look on to the left, bottom left, that's where the playground will situate. That playground is twice the size that is recommended by the ULDC. To the east of that, which is on the right, we have 2 detention area to retain water, storm water on site, and then drain off the positive outfall, which is south of the property. We have more than sufficient parking. I think the request is 84. I'm sorry, the requirement is 84. We are providing 131 on site. So it will be sufficient for our tenants to keep their cars on that area. These are the conditions that are prepared by the county staff for us to meet. Condition number 1 is to improve Orlando, and we had a zoning subdivision variance which came before you a few months back. I can't remember the exact date, which was approved by this commission. The second condition is to construct a sidewalk along Old Military Trail. And that concludes my presentation, and any questions, I do my best to answer.
No. Have any at this point? Staff?
Did you have
Thank
any
you.
elevations of that project?
Pardon me?
Did you have any elevations of those townhomes?
Not at this time, I'm sorry.
Any other comments at the moment from commissioners? No, thank you. Okay.
Just getting the PowerPoint. Good morning, commissioners. This is Brenda Martinez with Zoning Division. And first of all, I'd like to thank the agent for their presentation. Before you today is Evergreen Townhouse Development. The 4.52 acre property is located on the west side of Old Military Trail. It's approximately 0.1 miles north from Orlando Avenue. And as you can see, the zoning designation is RM, multifamily. And it also consists of a multi-residential future land use designation. As aforementioned by the agent, this site received the Zoning Commission approval on November 23rd for a subdivision variance to allow access from a 30-foot right-of-way, in addition to conditions to improve the adjacent roads. Before you is a 2 Class A conditional use requests. The first one is to allow over 24 multifamily units in the RM zoning district, and the second request is to allow workforce housing program density bonus greater than 50%. As you can see in the surrounding site, you have combination of residential, multifamily residential towards the west and the south, in addition to commercial uses to the north. And the agent is proposing 40 units. The workforce housing would allow an additional 17 units for a total of the 40 residential units. In terms of the analysis, staff finds that the site is compliant with the following standards before you. So the consistency with the code, this includes consistency between the future land use designation and the zoning, in addition to meeting the property development regulations. The lot is 4.52 acres and is 181 feet in width with a maximum of 522 feet in depth. The structures that are proposed before you complies with applicable PDRs, including the design standards, which it depicts at 99 feet towards the front, the 19 feet, 0.8 to the sides, and greater than 47-foot separations, as well as the 69.21 rear setbacks. In terms of the architectural review, the multifamily residential buildings are not required to comply with the architectural review design guidelines. This is because it's less than 16 units. However, the applicant has agreed to obtain any architectural review approvals at time of building permit review. We also have went over the workforce housing analysis, and the applicant is seeking the Class A, as this will allow a 76% workforce housing program density bonus. By right, 23 is allowed, but with the workforce housing program, 17 additional units would be allowed through the workforce housing program. This would be the total of 40 units, as aforementioned. The applicant is also seeking to utilize the full incentive program, the full incentive option. And also factors of consideration has been included as part of the analysis, which complies with the county objectives, and also including the potential for impact for the proposed density bonus. This includes the compatibility with the character of the adjacent and surrounding areas where the proposed development is to be located, should the board decide to recommend approval. The proposed development also complies with the minimum parking requirements. Right now, the agent is proposing a total of 123 parking. 84 is required, and the agent is proposing 123. This includes, in addition, 43 guest parking spaces. My apologies, for the guests. The site also is compliant with the landscape and buffering requirements as well. They're proposing a 15-feet incompatibility buffer towards the north of the property. This area that borders Crosstown Plaza towards the north. In addition, the south property line will include a 15-feet incompatibility buffer, which is adjacent to a place of worship. It's known as Earthen and Vessels Evangelism. And also, there's in addition to that, engineering has granted a base building line waiver along Old Military Trail. So this will require that the 15-feet right-of-way buffer is proposed as well towards the east property line.
I'm going to jump in for a second.
Yes.
I think we could probably go straight through. Staff is finding that it meets all of the approval requirements for the proposed use. So if you could just go to the, rather than go through every
Definitely.
single
All the
standard,
standards.
it's all in the staff report that there's
Sure.
several standards that we have found it compliant with. So
Of course, Wendy. Okay, so yeah, we did complete the analysis, including the trees that are to be preserved and mitigated. Design minimizes adverse impacts, development patterns as well. We analyzed all of that and the changed conditions and circumstances. So at time of publication, after that, we did receive some context concerning traffic. However, based on all of the analysis before you today conducted, staff do recommend approval of the request in order to adopt a resolution to approve the two Class A conditional use requests that would allow the development of the 40 multifamily units, including the I'm sorry about that, the workforce housing program density bonus greater than 50%. So yes, staff recommends approval of the request subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C1 and C2. And this concludes my presentation, and thank you. Open for any other questions.
Thank you. Any comments for staff from commission at this time? No? And thank you. Maybe we have a couple cards.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, when I call your name, please step up to the podiums. We have Joe Garrett and Kathy Robeson. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Full name is Joseph Garrett. Address, I reside at 4569 Watataka Way in West Palm, but I'm also the pastor of the church. It's funny, I speak in front of hundreds of people on a regular basis, and I'm nervous today. Thank you for the opportunity. As a homeowner and a business leader, I would never want to deny someone the rights to enjoy the free and fair use of their property. That being said, I believe there are some potential issues with the staff recommendation. There's quite a few assumptions in their report, one of which is that if you do increase it to 40 units, they don't anticipate more than 11 children, 3 of a high school age, and that already violates the max capacity for the local high school. Personally, I believe if you're making housing for, sorry, again, I'm really nervous today. If you're making housing for people that are of lower income, you would probably have more children than that. The variance for Orlando Avenue that was passed on November 23rd was based on the original density of 5 units per acre. Orlando only has a 30-foot right-of-way, and the reason for the variance was because for that original density, it should have been 40 feet. And so they passed the variation based on the density that was proposed back in November. And I'm just wondering, would that variation have been granted given the requested increase in the density of housing? When the current study was made for the peak number of cars on Military Trail, I'm not sure when it was performed, but if it was prior to this past spring, when we had a mass influx of people to the county, the numbers are likely no longer valid. Currently, you cannot egress onto Military, especially to make a U-turn to go north, anywhere between 5 and 6 p.m. The road from Okeechobee is backed all the way up past Orlando Avenue, headed north. So if you're southbound, you'll be stopped before you get to Orlando. This issue will only be exacerbated with the increased density. They're proposing 123 parking spaces. This could potentially be alleviated by placing a traffic light at Military and Orlando Avenue. And then finally, the north border of this property looks onto the rear of the Publix and other building loading areas in the Crosstown Plaza. If I read the report correctly, they're proposing a 6-foot hedge. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to live where my backyard view is the back of Publix and the other buildings there. And so I think building buildings for people that are low income is a priority. I would love to see that done. I hope to have several of our people in our church actually live there. But I think the board should consider...
Thank you, sir. Your time's expired. Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
For whom?
The pastor that just testified, or that spoke, my question is, he mentioned low-income housing. This is workforce housing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so workforce housing, not low-income housing, correct?
Okay.
I have handouts. I don't know if you'd like to accept them. There's some pictures that I've taken.
Madam Chair, motion to receive and file.
Second.
Okay, and I don't know. There's 12 here, so. In addition, before my time starts, I had a letter from one of our neighbors. I asked if I could read it in. They said no, but if you wanted to accept it, you could. I also have copies of that as well.
Okay, can you make that a part of what we are accepting, please?
Yes. Okay. My name's Kathy Robertson. I live at 4792.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. If we could complete that motion to receive and file.
Madam Chair, make a second motion to receive and file the letter from the neighbor.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Kathy Robertson, 4792 Badger Avenue. I've lived in the neighborhood since 1988. Our neighborhood consists of multiple single-family homes throughout the area. Just to put it in perspective, they're proposing 123 parking spaces in this development at the end of a dead end where the only exit out is Old Trail. If you look at Orlando Avenue and the next street south is Alberta, if you add those homes up, there's about 67. Say each home has two cars. That's 134 cars. And that's on 2 long streets of single-family homes. And they want to put 123 parking spaces into that little spot there at the end of a dead end where the only way out is Old Trail onto a Military Trail. It is true there's apartment complexes and all around us on Community and on Haverhill. They do not come into our neighborhood. All of our streets, and we just have a handful, are all dead ends. We have to access Old Trail to get out to Old Military Trail. Not opposed to the project, I just think where this is sitting just does not make sense. We have Kitty that's lived in this home that is going to be wrapped around for over 45 years. We have multiple generational families in this neighborhood. It's a very old neighborhood, not a tremendous amount of infrastructure, and it's a 30-foot right-of-way at the moment, and it's how are they going to expand it and put a sidewalk in? That means that they're going to take away land from the current homeowners. There is a day park. There's the church, and then there's a day park right at the corner of Orlando and Military. Families walk there in the evenings and the mornings, at the night. Kids walk to the bus stops. You'll see an east picture of showing Orlando Avenue, how narrow it is. Imagine 123 cars plus everyone that lives there trying to get out to Military Trail in the mornings and trying to get home. Okay. That's what I have.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I'm nervous too.
Madam Chair, we also have 3 additional cards that do not wish to speak, all in opposition and all regarding traffic.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commissioners at this time?
Yes, I had a few questions. With regard to the variance that was granted, I just wanted to clarify, was it the increased density, does that still, with regard to traffic? Sorry, okay.
Sorry, Olive Bailey with Land Development. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure, yes, sorry, it probably wasn't that clear. There was a variance granted in November with regard to the traffic and the density at 23 units, and now with the increased density, I just wanted to know if it still complies with the increased density.
So the variance that was proposed back in November was for projected daily trips of 322 for 44 units and 538 total trips. So I'm not sure how that, I haven't looked at the change, so I need to take a moment here to look at it to see how that would affect.
Okay, and then my follow-up question is, what would be allowed with a traffic light if that was something that was part of our motion, perhaps?
To trigger a traffic signal?
The volumes most likely will not trigger a traffic signal at Orlando and Military Trail. The Orlando Avenue is a small street, not enough many homes there, so it's not going to produce enough side street traffic to call for a signal at that intersection.
Okay. And sorry, I have a few more. Is it okay if I keep going? Sorry. So the one of the conditions of approval is to improve the road currently, yes?
Correct. They're conditioned to improve Old Military and Orlando to local street standards.
Okay. And then final question for the applicant, so thank you for coming up.
Yeah.
There is a great need for workforce housing in our community.
Yeah,
and
great need for housing. Period.
Yes, right, and of course workforce as well. So my question is, with the 8 units that are proposed, these are all for sale units?
These are not for sale units. These are rental units.
Okay.
And they are designated units that are required by the county to remain workforce housing for the perpetuity that project.
Okay, and that was remain for how long? Is there a stipulation?
I don't recall the amount of time, but whatever the ordinance for workforce housing is, that's what we have to meet.
Okay.
Whatever that ordinance is. I think it's for perpetuity. I don't know. Unless it's changed by the commissioners in the future, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. I just want to make one comment, just to clarify a little bit more about the traffic. Orlando is not the only access to Military Trail. There is another access to Military Trail. So I guess when the study for traffic was done, I think it also would distribute the traffic to Military Trail.
Okay, thank you.
And that's just to address the traffic light issue if there is something of that sort. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Wendy?
We found that answer for the subdivision if you.
Okay.
So at the time of the subdivision variance approval, it was approved, the analysis was based on 44 units, and they're actually proposing 40.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a time limit on the workforce housing?
For rental, it's 30 years non-recurring, so there would be a transfer. Whoever gets it would have the obligation.
30 years.
To 30 years.
Okay. Well, I have another comment here. I'm just concerned why we're allowing all this extra parking on this site. What's the point of the code requires 10 guest spots, and we're allowing 43 guest spots. So I'm not sure why that large increase. To me, it's going to promote people, more than families living in units. They're going to have multiple cars parked out there. You could have 3, 4, 5 cars per unit. And not to mention, the green aspect of it. It's just a lot more paving in the backyards of these units instead of having a backyard that's green space and pervious. So I'm a little concerned why we allow that amount of increase.
We don't have a maximum for multifamily development, but their minimum amount of parking required is only 84 spaces, so they are providing another 40.
Like 43 guest parking, so.
Yeah.
Maybe the applicant can explain, maybe there would be reasonable to reduce the number of parking spaces.
Okay. My only intuition to the reason, and I do not have this concretely done by Axe, the designer, is this is a design as a townhouse development. In townhouse development, sometimes most of the time you have parking in the first floor or in front of the units itself, and there aren't sufficient enough parking for additional family guests in the community in itself. At least that's my experience tells me that. So I guess in this design, the purpose of additional parking is to provide outside of the designated parking areas where guests or family members can have extra parking. And seeing that the ergonomics of the design is done in such a way that allows us to meet beyond the requirements of the playground, the green spaces, etc., we felt that this will help this project. Instead of having people parking along streets, etc., you have it inside of a community, outside of the public space. Yeah.
Right. I understand that. It just seems like an excessive amount of overage for guest parking.
Can I see, were there any of my other fellow commissioners have any questions or concerns regarding the parking, the number of spaces, just to get a...
Yeah, no, I had the same, concept that Mr. Beatty had, but having visited multiple apartment complexes, et cetera, what's happening is they are excess of cars that are parking on the street. So I can see what's happening. People are using the garages as storage. So that forces the cars outside. So I'd much rather have the parking spaces than them parking on the street.
That was my thought. That's why I just wanted to see if there was a consensus here. That I see it as being more of a proactive move in making sure that's taken care of, because I too have seen a lot of developments where people have been found in violation because they've had to park in front of their units, which is as a safety concern in terms of fire, et cetera, vehicles having to come through, or they are parking in the streets. And then we have another concern.
But with this parking, there's islands of greenery and trees and so on. I assume we haven't seen a landscaping plan, obviously. So,
Okay. All right, thank you. Commissioner Kelly? Commissioner Brumfeld?
I have no comment.
Commissioner Kern? No? Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to recommend approval of Class A conditional use request to allow 24 multifamily units in the multifamily residential RM zoning district, subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C1. And did I need to read? Actually, I'm sorry, I didn't say which. For CA 2020-02103. And a second motion to recommend approval of Class A conditional use request to allow workforce housing program density bonus greater than 50% in a standard zoning district, subject to conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C2.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So both motions
Both motion passes.
9-0.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item number 3 was also pulled from consent, which is Z 2021-02038, which is the Elizabeth Street at Square Lake. The request before the board is an official zoning map amendment to allow rezoning from the RE zoning district to the RT zoning district. The report has 16 pages and conditions are found on page 4, which is just the disclosure condition. We are recommending approval. We can turn it over to the agent for a presentation, unless you just want to hear from the public, or is that the will of the board?
Yeah, I think we have, how many cards? 2 cards in opposition.
Okay, so we'll
Yeah.
do a presentation.
Yeah, pardon me? I think if we could do a brief presentation,
Okay.
and then we'll just hear the two
Okay,
speakers.
so if
That's
the applicant
great.
can come to the podium to present their application request.
Good morning. My name is Neil Hannon. I'm the owner of the property and the applicant. Thank you for your time. Just want to motion to confirm staff recommendations for lot split.
So the request before us is just a rezoning. There's no motion for subdivision.
Okay.
Okay.
Would you like something from staff?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, everyone in the audience, good morning. I'm Jerome Ati from the Zoning Division, presenting on Z 2021-2038 Elizabeth Street at Square Lake. So the property is located on the west side of South Elizabeth Street, approximately 0.67 miles south of North Lake Boulevard, and approximately 0.39 miles west of Mill Jail Trail. Property currently has a low residential 1 unit per acre future land use and a residential estate zoning district. Acreage is approximately 2.37 acres. The request is to allow an official zoning map amendment from the RE, which is the residential estate zoning district, to the RT, which is the residential transitional zoning district. That's the location of the site. At the time of publication, staff received only 2 contacts from the public regarding this application, one requesting additional information and the other objecting because of the proposed future subdivision. The property currently is non-conforming in the residential estate zoning district, so they basically have to rezone to the less restrictive RT, residential transitional zoning district, to allow for that subdivision. The newly created lot will also have a single-family dwelling being constructed on it, and that single-family dwelling will have to meet the property development regulations of the residential transitional zoning district. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to the condition of approval in Exhibit C. This concludes my presentation. Staff is here to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff at the moment?
Nope.
No? Okay, thank you. We have a couple cards.
Susan Anderson, come to one podium, and Jill Gavgany, come to the other podium, please. Whoever would like to go first, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Jill Gavani, and my address is 4960 82nd Street North, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. I live in the Square Lake subdivision. You can see my dead-end street on the map. I am here today as my neighbor wants to rezone his property and build a residential home behind the existing home he already lives in. I live just to the south of him on the dead-end road. We have a very unusual development that we live in. It's county, and it's all big plots. I've lived there for more than 30 years. Mr. Hannon wants to subdivide, which basically, I believe, somewhat ruins the integrity of our development. I live on 1.87 acres. He lives on a 2.5 acre parcel, as well as an additional 2.5 acre parcel to the north and to the south of this one. I believe that we don't even have the infrastructure. We are all still on septic tanks. We are all still on wells. We don't have any city services. We are in the county. I believe if we start granting these subdividing these lots to a different zoning, everybody within Square Lake is going to want to sell off their back acre. And instead of 2 homes that we're looking at, or 1 home, we're looking at every big parcel having 2 homes. So therefore increases the density in our property. And with property values such as this, with big plots less than 1 mile west of Military Trail, we still don't have city services. And you just want to add more density. So I'm opposed to this, as I believe it affects our entire neighborhood, where all of us have big pieces of property. We bought in that subdivision for that reason. So now property values in Palm Beach County are to the extreme, and people want to subdivide his lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Your time has expired. Next to the podium is going to be David Portala.
Good morning. My name is Sue Anderson. My address is 8675 Square Lake Drive. I, too, have been a resident of Square Lake for over 30 years, and I am opposed to rezoning properties in our neighborhood. When we all bought originally in Square Lake, it was a very unique community. It's like being in a little slice of country in the middle of the city. We have a lot of trees, we have wildlife, we have stuff of that nature. It's basically like Jupiter Farms, but closer to town. When you bought into the neighborhood 30 years ago, you had 1 home on either side of you and 1 possibly behind you. That will all change if you allow the rezoning to be done. And this is a slippery slope. If we go from RE to RT, what's next? And Jill is right. We are on wells. We are on septic. We are at the mercy of the sheriff's department. We have no city services. You'll be increasing our traffic. You'll be increasing the amount of water that is used, which comes from the ground, which obviously is a problem anywhere. And I just feel that by changing the zoning, we are opening up to changing it even further down the road. Because if we do this zoning change, then what keeps someone coming in and wanting to increase the density even more? And it'll be easier to do that once the zoning is changed originally. Thank you.
You can go ahead, sir.
David Wiedela, W-I-I-T-A-L-A. I reside at 8401 South Elizabeth, which is 2 lots to the north of the lot which is the subject of the rezoning request. As Ms. Anderson indicated, Square Lake is designed as a semi-rural community. The 3 lots to the north of the requested rezoning are 5-acre lots that have been divided into 2 2.5-acre lots with 1 house on each 2.5 acres. If the Commission recommends approval of this rezoning request, every 2.5-acre plot on South Elizabeth will be subject to the same request, and there will be an additional 8 to 10 houses on just that one block stretch of South Elizabeth. That's not the way Square Lake was designed to be. It's supposed to be 2.5-acre lots. The problem specifically, of course, is that we'll have 4 houses per 5-acre lot. These lots run from South Elizabeth on the east to the canal on the west. Now, the staff report that recommends approval notes that to the east of South Elizabeth, there have been 10 RT zoning requests granted. But the key note there is to the east. On the west side of South Elizabeth, which is bordered by the canal on the far west side, I don't believe there have been any RT zoning requests granted that I'm familiar with. I don't think we should have 8 to 10 additional houses amounting to 4 houses per 5-acre plot on properties that were designed to be 1 house per 2.5 acres. And I certainly oppose the rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from fellow commissioners?
Yes, the site is, that's it in the lower left-hand corner?
Yes.
Where you see the little, that's the canal they're referring to, so it's really not on Square Lake.
The term Square Lake, the community
Overall
refers
area.
to the whole area, south of North Lake, west of Military Trail, next to Palm Beach Gardens, which you can't see on this map, and the community refers to itself as that entire rectangle, not the
And you
just
have
the lake
no
itself.
enlargement of that area there.
Phil could go to GeoNav if you want to. Oh, there we go. Zoomed in picture.
So it's just that one site in the red rectangle
Correct.
that they're seeking the rezoning on?
I have a question on that. If you go down to the bottom, there's 2 homes. Do you see that?
Phil, do you want to go to GeoNav real quick and put on the zoning layer so they could see the other sites with RE and RT? And then we can zoom in. We did that at the board yesterday, and it was helpful. Let's see how fast you can get there. Right. There you go. And you can zoom in a little bit more so Commissioner Scarborough can reference any parcels. Can you slide it up a little bit? There.
I think you were looking at not the lot directly to the south, right? You were talking about the lots.
Like 3 down.
3 down.
And I think it says.
What I'm looking at is there's variation in the lot sizes there is what I was trying to see, but I'm also trying to figure if you put 2 homes, I'm trying to figure out how they put 2 homes on that. They run a driveway down the side of that lot to the second home?
So
is it a guest house? Is it a?
Though the applicant wants to subdivide it, we advise their agent, who doesn't happen to be here at the moment, that there's concerns with subdividing that property. All property that when you subdivide has to have frontage. If you subdivide it in the back, there won't be frontage. They have to create a road, and the road would have to go on their property, and then there's an existing single-family residence. So if they want to subdivide, we're looking at possible additional variances to make it work to subdivide. But rezoning to RT is very consistent with what has been happening in the area. As you can see, across the street is RT. At the corner of just to the northeast of the current yellow area, there was a lot that was recently rezoned to RT, and then there was another one that we have in the process. So the area is rezoning. They're not changing the land use. The land use exists at LR1. So
we
it already
we can approve this, and then if he comes back to subdivide and put 2 homes there, we can deny it at that time.
Yeah, we have to evaluate the subdivision and when it comes in. Right now, it's just the rezoning, and the rezoning is very consistent with the land use and what's happening in that area.
But for sure, he has to come back. Is that correct, Wendy?
It appears if they want to subdivide, because there is no frontage. So if you split that in half, you're talking about the back portion of the property where there is no road. So they'd have to create a road and all, meet all the standards for the road and so forth. Not, and in addition, not impacting the existing home.
Yeah.
And we advise this to the agent.
But
So this
I
would-
have a question.
Yeah.
With the rezoning to RT, they'd be allowed to have a guest house, right?
Yes, correct.
The challenge with neighborhoods like this in the urban-suburban tier is that the land use designation is 1 unit per acre. That's the lowest urban land use designation that we have. The RE zoning district, residential estate, is a very old zoning district that was designed for 2.5 acre lots. So the setbacks and the accessory structure dimensions and such is very difficult for properties that are less than 2.5 acres. That's why you can't see it highlighted on the map because we haven't updated the zoning yet. But there was a parcel before you a couple months ago that was asking for RT not to subdivide, but just so that it could put in an accessory structure with a more reasonable setback versus RE. Because most of the lots in this neighborhood are not 2.5 acre lots. There's a variety of a variety of lot sizes throughout. And in up until recently, the RE was the only, or RE and RT were the 2 consistent zoning districts with LR1. So that's why, and for a while, a lot of properties, when they came in, they were required to rezone at some points from one zoning to another for consistency. But the rezoning itself is consistent with the plan and it's consistent with the pattern. And like Wendy said, the subdivision is just not probably going to be able to proceed without coming back for a variance.
Lisa, how many of these, what is the sizes of the lowest acreage lot and to the highest in that area?
I would say, looks like the largest is going to be 5 acres. There's 4 5-acre tracts. No, there's 1, 2. There's some 5-acre tracts towards North Lake that are approved for a subdivision. But the majority are going to be less than 2.5, and the smallest lot sizes are probably 0.62 acres,
So
closer to military.
Those lots won't be able to come in and expand on, okay.
Right. Directly across in the RT areas, I'm clicking on several of them, and they look like they're around 1 acre, directly across the street from the proposed lot. So.
I just have a question that's a follow-up to Commissioner Sauer's question regarding the guest home. Under the current zoning, if an owner just wanted to put on a guest house, they would not be able to do so. So not necessarily a separate unit. I just wanted to.
No, they could have an accessory dwelling or a guest house. The accessory dwelling would have a kitchen where the guest house wouldn't. So they could have either or. And it's a size limitation. So I think less than an acre is 800, and I think they could get up to 1,000 when they're an acre. So
They can do an
1,000 square feet for
accessory
the accessory
house.
dwelling. Mm-hmm.
If I could speak briefly, I have a garage
Just one moment, please. We'd need a comment card. I'm just wanted to speak to staff specifically about this my question here. So, because I know a lot of people are looking to do that right now, build guest houses, so I just wanted clarification to see whether or not they are able to do that right now, or if they would need to come in.
Right now, a guest house would be allowed. It just meet the property development regs and the size limitations. So a guest quarters or an accessory dwelling.
But they couldn't have a kitchen in a guest house.
Yes, the guest quarters doesn't allow the kitchen, but the accessory dwelling does, and both of them would be allowed, and both of them have size limitations.
Okay.
But they wouldn't be able to subdivide and sell it off.
No.
So creating the rezoning here to RT, they still have to come back with all the amenities they need to get a subdivision.
Right, in order to
on that.
subdivide, they have to have frontage.
They have to
So,
have a road
yeah,
in.
for that,
proposed
that
for
new proposed lot.
Right.
Correct.
So
And
this
that
is
road
the-
is how wide? Is it a standard minimal county road?
It would be 32 feet.
That's with right of way?
Subdivide that lot, they would have to provide a minimum 32-foot wide access.
32 feet?
Right of way, and then the road within that.
Yeah, so it would most likely travel along, I'm guessing either most likely the north. Can you click on their property again? Probably on the north side, I'm guessing. But keep in mind that then, once you create a road there, then the house that exists has to meet the appropriate setbacks from the newly created road.
And what about health department and the septic tank issue? Any issues with that?
They would have to contact them and get that approval in order to be able to get their subdivision approved.
Yeah.
Can we zoom in on the parcel?
Yep.
Thank you.
I didn't hear. What was the zoning on the parcel now?
The current
RE.
zoning is RE, and they're looking to rezone it to RT.
To RT.
Both districts are consistent with the LR1 future land use. The lot as it exists right now is less than 2.5 acres for the current district. It just exists as it is, so. But I believe their intention is to subdivide it to have RT, because then it would meet the property development reg size-wise, but it still has to have frontage, still has to have access, and the
Still need
existing
a
structure
32-foot
still has to meet setbacks.
It would still need a 30-foot wide
And it would need
road
the-
with
yep.
the setbacks after that.
Yep.
Okay.
And they still, this is just a step one.
This
They
is-
still need to they still have to come in
Right.
depending, okay.
And it may,
Yep.
if the owner doesn't move forward with subdivision, then they are able to take advantage of the RT property development regs for their home.
How long does that attach to the property, the RT approval we give them?
Until you were to rezone it to a new district. It's
Okay.
indefinite.
It does, there's no timeline, do they have? Okay.
Yes.
All the housing in this area is all on septic. There is no municipal, no city, no county water available to them. Is that correct? And where's the nearest, not the lake, but where's the nearest canal relative to that part? That
On the west side.
I'm asking staff, sir.
Excuse me.
Directly to the west, there's a canal.
Okay. What canal is that? Sorry.
It's owned by Northern Palm Beach County Improvement District.
Okay. All right. And going down the 32-foot road and improving that property, if that were to occur in the future, they would have to add additional septic to that, in addition to the septic that's already there?
They would have to go through the process of providing the water and sewer for the property and
Okay.
getting the necessary approvals from the health department.
And would they have to improve the current septic system on the existing structure
That would
if
all
code
be-
has changed?
That would all be evaluated
Okay.
at the time.
That answers my question. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, staff, I'd like to ask, would they need an actual road or an access easement?
So the code requires that they provide a road, so the variance would be for an easement. They can request a variance for an easement, but the code requires that they provide a road,
Okay,
platted tract.
all right.
Could the size of that road vary?
The minimum is 32 feet by code.
That is the minimum, no matter
Correct.
what.
Yeah, but residential access street is 32 feet
Okay.
wide.
But the variance could be less. If they ask for a variance, it could be more of a driveway width as opposed to a 30-foot wide road.
The minimum would be 20 feet wide.
Okay, thank you.
Did I hear this gentleman also owns the site to the south of him? Or not? No? He just owns that one parcel.
Just that parcel, according to GeoNav.
Any other comments, questions? Are we prepared with the motion? Do I have a motion?
Motion to recommend a resolution approving an official zoning map amendment from the residential estate zoning district to residential transition zoning district, subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right. Okay, motion passes. Okay.
That'll bring us to item number 8 on page 6 of the agenda. It's ZV 2020-2120, Delray Self-Service Storage. The request before the board is a type 2 variance to allow the reduction in the minimum lot size. The staff report is 13 pages, and conditions are found on page 4, as well as I believe our add delete. Staff is recommending approval. This has been back before the board a couple times for postponements so that the applicant can work with the area residents. So I'll turn it over to the agent to do a presentation as well as an update.
Okay, I just want to make a quick comment to the commissioners. We do have no cards on this, so if we can make the presentation brief.
Yeah, and we can make it very brief.
Okay.
Scott Backman, it's good to
Thank
see you all again,
you.
and actually very, very happy to be here. This item was originally on the consent agenda back in December. We postponed 4 times. Appreciate the ability and willingness of the board to allow us to postpone. We've met with the neighbors a number of different times. We've met with the Delray Alliance. No one's here today. So I think we've done a good job. This item is for a variance, as you heard from Wendy. We will be back before you. I don't know when, later in the summer or early in the fall with our site plan at some point, I believe. So this is simply for a zoning variance to allow us to rezone to MUPD. We can go into a lot more detail from Joanne in a PowerPoint if you'd like, but that's what we've got to say.
No, just the updates from before. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, and it
happy
is a
to answer
good sign that we do not have the.
Believe me,
So
I'm much
assuming you did a
happier
lot
that
of
way
work.
also.
So you don't want us to postpone to the next meeting?
Please don't.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like anything from staff or?
No.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I think you speak. No, I don't have anything. No, I'm good.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving a Type 2 variance to allow for the reduction in minimum lot size subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C.
Second.
As amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Motion passes.
Item number 9 was postponed, so that brings us to page 7 of our agenda, which is PDD DOA CA 2021-1612. The name is PGA Waterfront Residential. The request before the board included an official zoning map amendment, a development order amendment, and Class A conditional use. There are 60 pages within the report. Conditions are found on pages 9 through 16, as well as our add delete. And staff is recommending approval of each of the requests subject to conditions in Exhibit C1 through C3. We can turn it over to the agent for a presentation and then staff.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, George Gentile, Senior Partner of 2GHO, Inc. We're the planners and landscape architects. This is my 3rd time bringing this project to you. You've seen it twice before. What we've done on this one, I think, though, is a tremendous improvement. We've added some acreage to the property. And if I can, I'm going to try to make a very brief presentation because I know that you all are been here for a while and have a few more items to go. This is the proposed project located on with PGA Boulevard to the right side or north side of the project. You see the north arrow at the bottom, and Elson Wilson. With this project, we're proposing 3 buildings over an underground parking area, and we're proposing 98 units. The property is, the request is to change the 2.8 acres that we're adding to the property from RM to PUD to be consistent with the remainder of the property that was already done as a PUD previously. We're doing a development order amendment to go from 70 units. The first project was approved at 88 units. This is being proposed at 98 units. And then a conditional use for the marina to be a part of the recreation pod of the PUD. And a Type 1 waiver requesting that we eliminate the Type 2 incompatibility buffer adjacent to the recreation pods because it's all actually one PUD, and those marina boats will be utilized hopefully by the people in the project. The Type 1 waiver was previously approved in 2018 for the 70-unit project, and a Type 2 variance was approved in 2015 for the same code for the 88-unit project. I'm not going to go over the history. You have that in your package. This is a view looking northwest from the commercial area to the bottom corner of the project. There's also a apartment residential project that was just built there across the Elson Wilson to the side. You can see the top of it. But as you can see, this is the Elson Wilson Road area. You see the PGA Boulevard Bridge and the Waterway Cafe across the waterfront. Very briefly, this was the original site plan. There were townhouses going all across the waterfront, and then we had 2 additional condominium buildings that were going in, and this was the 70-unit project on 7.8 acres. This is probably the most important thing for me to provide you with, because the property is, we're requesting the PUD and increasing the acreage, but we have a HR 12 density on here on the project, and a CH, a commercial high designation as well. We're proposing 98 units. The project is ability with the land use to have 132 units, but we feel that the 98 units is what this project is working out very well for our property owner. You can see the recreation areas there, the water space, and the open space is 5.23 acres on the project. Just briefly, the access we are providing, part of the project is to provide a land dedication to the county for a right turn in lane to the entryway for the project after they're coming southbound on Elson Wilson. Previous development, there was a requirement to work with the county on the turn lane off the PGA Bridge, which has been already built, and that has been in for about 2-3 years now. There will be a gatehouse. We meet all the requirements for the stacking and that area, and then the entire parking for the residential portion of the project is in an underground area. This property actually goes, just for those commissioners who haven't been here, it goes from elevation 30 to elevation 6 down at the waterfront. So there's a tremendous slope, so we're able to actually put the parking decks underneath the buildings and actually hide them. And the property actually, as it goes down, the buildings profile on Elson Wilson are less impactful to that area, and we have a tremendous setback. The marina has been already permitted. This is the same marina design that you saw previously. There's 3 boat slips. It will be part of the PUD. There's also a small marina management structure that's about 216 or 267 square feet. Very, very small. The amenity area in the center is pools, and underneath that is actually club area for the residents and exercise gym that you won't see, because the amenity area, which is, you see the landscape area, is actually above it in a elevated, and you'll see that right here in this. This is a view looking northeast of the project along the Intercoastal Waterway. We are also moving the marina the same as we did before, because it's been permitted, about 42 feet into the property area to increase the area along the waterfront. There's been some questions about the activities that have been going on there. Basically, there was one individual who had comments on it. The FDOT actually requested using this property to do some major structural spalling issues they had under the bridge. They've been on the site. They're off now, but they were on the site for about 6 to 8 months doing work. They had barricades in the water around the mangroves on the bridge area, and that was FDOT trying to make sure the bridge stayed in place and was operational and working. So we've also had some questions regarding traffic. We've met all the requirements of your traffic standards. I think we wouldn't be here today if we didn't. And we definitely feel that this residential project is certainly quite a bit less impactful than any of the commercial high that we could have done here. Actually, the first project that we came in with on this was a mixed use and had hotel, 100 units, 3 restaurants, and several other office buildings on the property. We feel this is much better and much compatible for the area. Again, looking at the project, you can see the apartment complex that's up in a little bit towards the right from the in the upper portion of the project. That's been a very successful project in that area as well. So. Okay, I'm going to leave it there and I'll answer any questions. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions at the current time?
Just one. How many stories is this?
This is 6 stories, 77 feet, which is the average from the average grade height. In Palm Beach County, we have to do an average grade calculation when you have a severely sloped site, and so it's at 6 stories.
George, I have a question for you. On one of the sheets in here, there's looks like a plan of a building that says multifamily, 3 mid-rise over parking. Is that, I don't see that on your site plan, that shaped building. Is that like in here by mistake?
I don't know. It may be. It shouldn't have been in my. It says three stories over parking.
Multifamily, 3 mid-rises over.
Oh, those are
parking.
the 3 buildings that are there are on the parking deck. They're over the parking deck. That may be what it's indicating.
Is that what it's indicating?
I think so. That may be what it is.
Okay, because it's an odd shape. It's not anything in shape-wise.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I was just explaining that. I'm sorry, Mr. Beatty. This is the grade plane plan that you have in there that we're required to provide for the building department to review the and the zoning department for the for the height calculation.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's actually the parking.
It's the parking. I
parking
turned the page, I saw that, I
underneath.
go, well, there's the same shape as the parking area.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
I just wanted to say it's very impressive, and you have done a good job at trying to create a nice, with the additional land. So
Appreciate it.
I've seen it for years, so it's nice.
One of the items that we added to this was circulation around the entire area so that there's actually fire rescue service was very happy because the last plan did not allow it to go along the waterfront. Now we have it there. So, okay.
Yeah, it looks good.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners for the applicant? Okay.
Would you like a presentation from staff?
Did anybody want a presentation from staff here? No? Okay. We do have one card. Okay.
Madam Chair, 1 card was submitted in opposition of, and they do not wish to speak.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion on the table?
I make a motion for item Agenda 10, 2021-01612, motion to recommend approval of an official zoning map amendment to allow a rezoning from multifamily residential zoning district to the planned unit development zoning district subject to conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C1. Motion, can I make all 3 or do we need to vote on each one?
Second.
One.
Let's just handle them separately.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right. First motion, second by.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? All right, motion passes on the first one.
Okay. Second motion to recommend approval of a development order amendment to modify the site plan, add land area, units and uses, and modify conditions of approval subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C2.
As amended.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, second motion passes.
And motion to recommend approval of a Class A conditional use to allow a marina subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C3.
Second.
As amended.
As amended?
As amended.
Why it wasn't amended?
It's on the end. Delete this.
Oh, it's on the end.
Conditions C2 and C3 were amended. So.
Okay, can we then, just for clarification, can you repeat the second one
yes.
as amended? Thank you.
Yes. So a motion to recommend approval of a development order amendment to modify the site plan and land area, units and uses, and modify conditions of approval subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C2 as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
And then recommend approval of Class A conditional use to allow a marina, subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C3 as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Page 8 of our agenda is our last item on the agenda, item number 11, SV, ZV, ABN, PDD, CA. It's almost all of our acronyms there. 2021-533, it's the Fount MUPD. We have 120 pages in our staff report, conditions on page 14 through 21, as well as on our add delete. The request before the board includes a subdivision variance, type 2 variances, a development order abandonment, an official zoning map amendment, Class A conditional use for TDRs, and Class A conditional use for workforce housing density bonus. Staff is recommending approval of all of the requests, subject to the conditions in Exhibit C1 through C5, and we can turn it over to the agent and then staff for a presentation.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, we do have one person that wishes to speak, but your presentation can be brief.
Yes,
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I will try to keep it as brief as possible.
Thank you.
Again, for the record, Josh Nichols with Schmidt Nichols, representing AHS Residential. And with me today, I also have our team, which is comprised of Simmons & White, traffic engineer, HSQ for civil. We also have our environmental attorney with us as well. So we'll get right into the action here. So quickly go through the request. We're doing a rezoning from RH on a portion to MUPD for the entirety of the project. We have transfer development rights and workforce density bonus. We're asking for two variances. One is for a subdivision variance for Elmhurst Road. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail, as well as a landscape buffer that overlaps a Lake Worth Drainage District easement. We also have a type 1 waiver for parking reduction, which will happen at a staff level after this, and development order abandonment of a previous development order. Companion application, so this is a large-scale future land use amendment. So this did go through Planning Commission and received a unanimous approval from Planning Commission, as well as transmittal to the state by the BCC. So that happened late in 21. And again, the land use change was from commercial high with an underlying 8 in UT to commercial high with underlying 12 and HR 12 on the balance. So the front portion of the property already had commercial high. So just to orient you, I tell people all the time where this site is, and the thing that sticks in their mind and they immediately know is where the sheriffs hang out under the trees. So for some reason, that's what people represent this to. But anyways, it's between the Tesla dealership and the Caterpillar dealer on the south side of Okeechobee, approximately 27.6 acres, and owned by the town of Palm Beach and will remain in the town of Palm Beach's ownership. So this is a long-term lease deal with those folks. So as you can see, Elmhurst is about just south of midway of the project, and that's access only for residential, or for the residents of the community. So quick project history. So this was previously used by the town of Palm Beach as their municipal and yard waste complex, and it was previously approved in 1980 for a special exception, which is being abandoned through this ask. Again, existing zoning RH and will become MUPD, consistent with our neighbors along Okeechobee. And again, keeping that commercial frontage there along Okeechobee. Just to quickly go through how we arrived at our density numbers and the unit counts. So I won't go through all that, but anyway, the commercial portion of it, we're allowed at a 0.5 FAR. Which would be 76,000 square feet, and we're proposing a commercial development of about 21,000 square feet. So only about 28% of the permissible intensity. Going through the multifamily side, so that's south of the 3.5 acres of commercial, is 708 units. We're at 25.59 dwelling units per acre, and of that will be 177 workforce units. So that's 25%. That was actually dictated through the comp plan side of it, through the future land use, where we did a voluntary condition of the 25% of the total units to be workforce. Just to talk, because I think this is an interesting point, and I don't think that there's a lot of developers that can pull off this project due to the environmental cleanup side of it. For the past 80 years, this site has been utilized for things such as household solid waste disposal, yard waste disposal. It was a firing range. So there's a lot of environmental issues on this site, and it really takes a project of this nature with a public-private partnership to really be able to clean up this site. So we're talking in a range of greater than $10 million to clean this up. After we're through, hopefully, the entitlement process, we have to come back to the Board of County Commissioners to ask to designate this as a brownfield. So we have to work through state, federal regulations for the cleanup. There's groundwater, there's above ground waste. If everyone's been by the site, these mounds that are out there are mostly vegetative debris above the surface to about 25 feet in height. So there's a substantial amount of waste that needs to be moved off the site. One of the things that we heard from one of the neighbors was that some rats and other types of animals were coming out of that debris across the canal to the west. And one of the things that's good about this is that'll be stopped. We'll be capping off the landfill. It has to have 2 feet of fill that goes above it. And then we're actually turning that into an opportunity and a benefit because we're going to propose about 4.5 acres of recreational area throughout the site for the community. I should say for this community. It is a gated development. So that's kind of an overview quickly of the environmental side. We have an environmental attorney who has been working on this project with us for 3 years in order to get all of that stuff tightened up. Again, the town is part of the process as well. So here's a site plan rendering. I think it reads a little better than just a 2D site plan. So as you can see, the commercial, you see Okeechobee to the far north. The commercial is the first 3.5 acres. South of the commercial, we do have some large transitional buffer and usable open space area. It's about 1/2 acre. Beyond that, as we're still moving south, is when we transition into the guardhouse for the complex. And again, this is a rental apartment. The 2 buildings that you see, the C shape or the horseshoe shape, those are 7 stories in height. And so they do meet all the applicable setbacks to be able to do that. In between those 2, you have some parking, and then that is a parking deck. So we actually have to comply with the parking standards. And I think to Commissioner Beatty's point, so we're actually asking for a staff level waiver for a parking reduction. So we're not overparked. We're slightly under by about 15%, but we are still providing adequate to meet the market standard. So that parking garage you can see is 3 stories there, and that is all relatively adjacent to the Caterpillar dealer to the east, and then majority of the Tesla dealership to the west. We've also, as you can see, lost basically that western third of the property is all where the landfill currently is and where that's going to be excavated and capped. As we move south on the project, you see Elmhurst comes in at just about south of the midway of the project. So beyond Elmhurst south, those buildings are limited by condition of approval to 3 stories in height. So those will remain at 3 stories in height, which is more compatible with the multifamily to our west. And there's a mobile home park to the south. The folks that are, and we'll get into some of the separations, but we've distanced ourselves from the west, which are the only single-family dwellings that are in proximity. As you can see, there's a basketball court in there, 2 clubhouses, 2 pools. It's a big development, we understand, but when we look at where do we want density in this county, we don't want to keep pushing it out west where there's not those facilities and services. This is where we want to put, there's jobs in walking distance, there's bus routes, there's amenities for these folks. So we want to put this density. It was one of the Commissioner Weiss's discussion points too, that we need to create these nodes of density in the county. We need, and this is a perfect opportunity for it. So keep going. This is just a different look. North is still to your bottom right there. This is just the 2D site plan. So you can kind of see the commercial in red, the green spaces there highlighted. So those are mostly the recreation. So all those green spaces to the top of the page, that is all where those remediation areas exist. And we can't, so even though we're doing all this remediation, it's still, the soil's not suitable for vertical construction. So basically that area just has to stay as green space, open space, and some parking areas. And here's those separations. So there is a canal to our west, and then beyond that are some single-family homes. But we're in excess of 200 to the southernmost building there, and then 375, as you can see. Here's just some the pretty pictures of the architecture. Go through those quickly. So you can see more modern architecture. This developer, you've seen two of their projects prior. You've seen Banyan Ridge and also Pine Ridge. Pine Ridge, you may have seen, it's already coming out of the ground. They primarily do workforce housing. This is their bread and butter, is the workforce housing market. So compliance with the comp plan, I think these are important to note of these specific objectives and why we want this affordable housing, workforce housing in these infill areas. And the comp plan specifically speaks to that. It's in the URA. It's in the CCRT area. So again, these are all areas where they're promoting infill and increased densities. Public outreach. So as you can see, we've done 3 formal meetings back in mid to late 2021 with the OCR, and we've not had any public comment on any of those meetings. We did have a neighbor contact us, Mr. Dygert, who you'll hear from today, and we spoke to him at length. I think his biggest issue is traffic. He lives on the west side of that canal in that neighborhood. So again, we're putting in a fully signalized intersection. Right now it's span wire across from the fire station, and we're putting in full mast arms there to handle the traffic. And also that reliever valve on Elmhurst is only for resident only. So so we believe we're handling traffic very well, and we don't believe that we're going to impact his neighborhood. Again, voluntary conditions, we have the 25% total workforce housing units, so that's 177 units put on the books just in one project for workforce. Residential limitation to the 708, and then Elmhurst, south of Elmhurst, would be limited to the 3-story maximum height. I won't go through the county assessment there, but I just want, the last bullet I thought was interesting as I was doing some research, but the National Association of Realtors reports that the rental rates have risen 55% in the last 2 years. And the way to combat that is we got to get more supply out there. That's really our only way. And again, this is aimed more toward that workforce clientele. So with that, just trying to be brief for you, but there's a lot of information there.
No, that was good. I didn't mean it that way. When I said be brief, I just got a little nudge from my fellow commissioner when I made that comment. But no, I didn't mean it that way. Okay.
No worries. Well,
thank you for the presentation.
No worries, and I have the full team here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Write it down. All right. Did we have any questions? For
Josh,
the
real quick, the 3-story buildings, they are for sale or for rental as well?
Rental.
Okay, so the entire project, all 700 units, 700 plus units, are rental units, including the 177 workforce housing?
Yes.
Great job.
That's correct.
Great job. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
I just have I got a couple environmental questions. I'm very familiar with the parcel. How long is it going to take to mitigate the environmental contaminants on that site?
I'll let Joe Ulo from Stearns Weaver.
Like I said, I'm really familiar with the property.
Commissioner Kelly, Joe Ulo, Stearns Weaver Miller, Environmental Counsel for AHS. I'll give my card for the record. The process for the actual waste management, soil movement, and all of that will happen during the course of development. So that will happen in the course of the process of actually the construction. The actual groundwater monitoring and the other aspects of restrictions and covenants and legal work that will follow will take time after that. Groundwater monitoring, because it is a landfill, there's going to be extended long-term care requirements that are associated with the landfill portion of it. And those can go on up to 30 years by rule. We will work with the state to talk about, that'll have ongoing inspections and the like that'll go along with the green space area. And then the groundwater monitoring will go on for that period of time. We may work with the state to try to work on the groundwater monitoring if we could show that it is not causing any issues, or it can clean itself up through natural attenuation, which basically rain dilution. Then we could cut that time shorter if we could show through the data that it can be mitigated sooner. But the actual, it won't delay construction, but the operation will continue to be monitored after the operations are completed.
And the mitigation of the contamination from the range? I know you addressed the landfill part, and
Yes.
the other part is the range. We're talking decades of lead.
Yes, sir. So our contaminants concern out there are largely related to the landfill activities, which are heavy metals, and also lead related to the range. We have detected that in soils. Those concentrations are actually within commercial limits. They do exceed residential limits. We'll have to possibly remove spot areas of contamination when we do the site construction, and then also there's an opportunity to do some capping of the areas. As Josh mentioned, the prescription for the landfill closure involves 2 feet of clean cap over the landfill areas, and those 2 feet of clean cap can also go over the other areas so long as it's maintained through engineering controls and management.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? No? Okay, we do have just the one card, but does staff have anything that they had wanted to add to the applicant's presentation?
No, I'll just provide some clarification.
Yeah.
Josh had touched on it, but in the original request, you'll see in the staff report, there was a request for a variance to reduce the parking down. However, when we were analyzing it during the staff report review, found that it could be done administratively because they were below the threshold, so they withdrew that request. Additionally, staff had concerns with the original request for the Type 1 restaurant with the drive-through. So they've withdrawn the request for with the drive-through. There'll still be a building there, possibly with a Type 1 restaurant without the drive-through. But that was removed as well, withdrawn. So I just want to put that out there for clarification on the request. But other than that, staff does support the application request.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions for staff?
I have one for staff that relates to the workforce housing. The ordinance on that, is there a certain amount of workforce housing that is allowed to be built for rental versus ownership?
I'll turn it to Brian.
The way the county's program works is it's an either or. You can there are rules if you go for sale and there are rules if you go by rental. That it's an owner's discretion.
But there's no quota on what has to be
the
built.
county has not established a program that says you have to provide it both methods. It's simply for sale. Your direction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, Madam Chair, we do have one card from the general public that wishes to speak, and that would be Mr. Larry Dygert. Please approach the podium. And please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Larry Dygert, 1763 Breezy Lane. I've lived there in the neighborhood for over 40 years. I'm the president of the neighborhood. And basically, I have everything that was melted down from the town of Palm Beach buried in my yard. So this has been an ongoing thing ever since I've lived there and way before. And basically, we do need more housing, so I understand that. But the 2,000 cars that are going to come in and out, it takes me 22 minutes to pull off a Breezy Lane to get onto Okeechobee to go to work in the town of Palm Beach. So I am a carpenter in the town of Palm Beach. And there again, progress, we got to have more houses. I understand that. But this landfill, I fought and got them to quit dumping there because they have no liners. Everything is seeping into the canal, which runs to the Palm Beach Canal, which runs to our ocean. So the environmental thing is really a big thing for me. If this drainage, whatever they're putting on this land, I hope it's going into the city sewage, not into the canals or catchment area or something like that. It should be going into the pipes and going to the proper system, not running out into our environment. And basically the cars, that many homes, if anybody has been on Okeechobee or Haverhill at 7 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a gridlock. So for me to get out after this place comes out at the traffic light and the Rock, which is Station 23, the fire department, I really hope them people go all over. The Rock is Game the Rock because they do an excellent job. And I think it's just a little lot of, building, but it's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to stop everything, but I wanted to voice my opinion on how I felt. And my wife is going to retire in about a year and a half from 37 years with animal control. And it's really going to really affect the quality of life because I'm not leaving and I'm going to be retired on Breezy Lane across from this and trying to get out in my retirement time, So it's a stressful thing, but I really want to thank Josh. He's been very, he's called, he's answered everything whenever I've called him. So thank you very much for, he's doing his job and I'm trying to do what I can. But there again, the dump site has really been a thing. When I fought him, it wasn't contaminated. The health department would even
Thank
talk
you,
to
Larry.
me.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time, exercising your right to come and voice your opinion. I think we've all been impacted by traffic in one way or another as everybody sees what a great area it is to live in. Unfortunately, we are we're all feeling that. Okay.
Madam Chair, if there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion. Motion to adopt a resolution approving a subdivision variance to allow an increase in projected daily trips for a 60-foot right-of-way, Elmhurst Road, subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C1.
Second.
As amended?
As amended?
No, C2 was amended.
I read it in the record.
C1 as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving a Type 2 variance to allow a reduction in the number of parking spaces, the width of the right-of-way buffer, and to allow a 15-foot overlap of an easement into a 20-foot right-of-way landscape buffer, subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C2 as amended.
Madam Chair, before we get into that, I believe there's a couple variances that aren't actually applicable that were just mentioned. Wendy?
Yeah, the motion on the add-delete. Adopt a resolution approving a Type 2 variance to allow a 12-foot utility easement overlap into a 20-foot right-of-way buffer, subject to the conditions as indicated in Exhibit C2 as amended. That would be the motion. Add-delete.
Ditto.
I would like to amend my motion to what Wendy just said.
That's what I was going to say. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of an official zoning map amendment to allow a rezoning from the multifamily residential high-density RH zoning district to the multiple use plan development MUPD zoning district, subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a Class A conditional use to allow a transfer of development rights, TDR, subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to recommend approval of a Class A conditional use to allow workforce housing program density bonus greater than 50%, subject to the conditions of approval as indicated in Exhibit C5.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
That is our last item on our agenda. So it brings us to any comments.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second. I
Oh.
guess that's the answer.
Apparently there are no comments.
All right. Okay, thank you. All right, see you next month.
Without the book?